To get ready to do your essay on Friday, we're going to just quickly run through the hero's journey. If you did not get all of these notes copied down yesterday, I want you to pause the screencast and do that. But this kind of ties in with what you were supposed to do the last time I was absent. So we're looking at the hero's journey, this journey that a character goes through from beginning to end that changes them. And most story formats can kind of be tied into this. When we start reading our dystopian novels, we're going to find that most of the protagonists in our dystopian novels went through this hero's journey. Percy Jackson went through this hero journey. And so we're going to talk about how Crispin does that. So the status quo tells us what our character's ordinary life is like. For Crispin, he's poor, he's a serf, he lives in Stromford, which is a small village. His mother and father are dead, and he's shunned by all. And his life would really go on like this forever, but something happens. He stumbles upon an adventure, and it's not something he was expecting or necessarily wanted to do, but he overhears John Aycliffe having a secret meeting with a stranger in the woods. And this event, had it not happened, would changes the course of his life. He cannot go back to just being, this poor kid in this village. Now, when our hero gets put into this journey, he really often doesn't want to go. Sometimes they do. But when you think back to Percy Jackson, he didn't understand what was happening in his world. He didn't want to change. He didn't want to be different. So leaving from Stromford, everything that Crispin knew, and going out to this new world, which is everywhere else in England. He'd never been outside of the boundary crosses. He didn't want to go. But something forces him to have to go. And there were probably a couple of things we could say. Father Cornell gets killed, the only ally he has in that village. And when he gets killed, he realizes that something really, really bad has happened because nobody kills a priest. And then he gets declared a wolf's head, and basically they're hunting him down. Anybody's allowed to kill him, and so he can't stay. He has to go. So as he crosses this threshold from Stromford and he's looking at this new world, which is everywhere else, often our hero meets a new mentor. And so in this case, the mentor was Bear. It's the person who helps him learn about this new world that he's in. So Bear teaches him about survival, how to trap food for himself, how to make money as he travels to get coins for food by teaching him how to play the flute and to dance and to sing. He teaches him how to understand the world around him. He sees the birds flying in the air and he knows something has disrupted them. And he realizes that John Aycliffe is up ahead searching for Crispin. So Bear, without him, without this mentor, this person to help him, Crispin probably would not have been as successful. So the bulk of our story, most of our story, is going to take place here, the test, allies, and enemies. These are all the conflicts that he goes through, the friends he makes, and all of the enemies along the way. This would make a great body paragraph when you're doing this, because one piece of evidence could be any conflict within the story in this new world. Any ally he makes, not Bear, because we already said that Bear is his mentor, but think of another person in the story who helped Crispin and how. And then any of the new enemies that he makes once he gets into this new world. And I would be hesitant to say that you should be using John Aycliffe, because John Aycliffe was part of his old ordinary world. Think of a new enemy that he gets. Now, after the bulk of the story, I would say most of the story happens here. Our character, our hero, is going to face a really big test, something that he is most afraid of. And in this case, it's John Aycliffe. He sneaks into the manor house and he confronts Aycliffe in his quest to free Bear. And so he makes this deal. And up to this point, that was his biggest fear. Think about all throughout the book how he's been running from John Aycliffe, trying to stay away from him. And now he confronts him, and it shows his loyalty and love for Bear. So the supreme ordeal, once the supreme ordeal happens, we know our hero is going to get out of this main conflict. In this case, he's not really going to return home because he's not going to go back to Stromford, but he's going to go back to this world where he kind of knows himself. And so the supreme ordeal happens when he escapes with Bear. they find out that Aycliffe betrays him, and Bear ends up killing Aycliffe, and so they are able to escape. Now, the reward and the journey home often kind of go together, and if you were going to do this for your body paragraphs, I would say you could probably put these two together, the reward and the journey home. You can see I kind of accidentally did that here. The reward is what our character, what our hero now has learned, and it's often more than an object. When I think about what has Crispin learned about himself, he's learned that he's not a serf, that he comes from a noble family. He learns about his mother and his father and the true facts about his past. And so that knowledge changes him. And so when we get back to, we say the journey home, but when we get back to some resolution, he's different. He's brave and he's confident and he's not afraid to leave and go explore the world now. He's got some newfound knowledge that's going to help him along the way. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the pre-write. On the opposite side of your page, or maybe on the flip side of your notebook, I want you to set up a pre-write. So here's my pre-write, and I kind of want it close by. That way I can look back and forth between my hero's journey chart as I start looking for evidence. So the prompt is, describe the protagonist's development through the story by analyzing 3 stages of the hero's journey. Well, I can tell that this is expository. There's no argument here. This is an expository. And so I need to restate this thesis. Instead of protagonist, I'm going to actually say Crispin's name. So Crispin develops through the story as he experiences the stages of, and now I need to pick which stages do I want to talk about. Well, if I were doing this one, I think I would probably do crossing the threshold and meeting the mentor, because I can see pretty clearly here how I could have one piece of evidence, another piece of evidence, and another. So I can see pretty clearly how my body paragraph might play out. I would definitely do this one because I can do tests for evidence, allies for evidence, and enemies for evidence. You could put the supreme ordeal and the ordeal together, or you could put the journey and the reward home. So you need to really think about which 3 ideas do you think you can explain the best in your body paragraph. You've got to be able to provide some text evidence as support. So mine, I would say the stages of crossing the threshold, tests, allies, and enemies, and the reward and journey home. But you're going to decide which ones you want to do, and it's going to be based on the 3 that you think you can provide the best evidence. Now, based on my thesis statement, I know that this is going to be, topic number 1 is going to be crossing the threshold. And I'm going to abbreviate here. It's not a big deal. I just want to outline what I'm doing. Test, allies, and enemies is going to be my body 2. And I know this is not neat. It doesn't need to be. And my 3rd one is going to be the reward and journey home. So you don't even really need to fill in your evidence here because you already have a lot of that evidence here. So I'm not going to say you need to necessarily recopy all of it as long as you know what you want to do. If it helps you just to do that and have it organized, absolutely. But you need to come to class with at least this much prepared so that on Friday you can do all of your writing. Now, when it comes to doing your hook, you've got to come up with a good hook. And it should not be the prompt. Your hook could be a fact about the Middle Ages. It could be explaining what is the hero's journey. It could be maybe a trait. You could define a trait that Crispin shows. For your context, you're going to do a one-sentence summary. Okay? The book, Crispin, is about a boy who, in one sentence, okay, what's his main problem? Where does it happen? What happens? What's the problem that he has to work through in the book? And then you go into your thesis. Okay, and so tomorrow on Friday, that's what you're going to be doing for your essay. So be prepared with at least this much of your pre-write done and ready to go. If you have any questions, you can email me. This screencast is here if you go home at night and you need to watch it, but you will not have time to work on your pre-write during class.